So Genesis chapter 1 is actually not the beginning of how the universe was created, and let me explain. So in your English Bibles, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, but that ain't actually what it says in Hebrew. So in the Hebrew, it says, Bereshit bara Elohim hashemayim aretz. And because there is no definite article behind the word Bereshit, which is beginning, it actually needs to read, or it can be read as, when God began to create the heavens and the earth. And so being as the Hebrew doesn't give the reader a definite beginning for when God created the world, the question then leads into, well, what was God actually doing in the beginning? And the answer to this question is going to be so strange. I need you to stick around for this entire video so you can understand what I'm about to explain. So this picture right here, this is how the Israelites saw the world. The Israelites used to believe the world was like this. Now, this video is not going to go into whether or not the world is actually like this, but all you need to know for right now is this is how your biblical authors saw the world. The Israelites used to believe the earth was flat. They used to believe there were three heavens. Inside of the second heaven was water. The third heaven was the realm where God was at, and the first heaven was where the sun, moon, and stars were at. And then you have this crystalline firmament. So why is any of this important? Because when you read Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, it says, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters, or the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the deep. You guys, when you read your Bible, you think that the waters that God was hovering over was the waters in the sea, not knowing that in ancient Near Eastern, ancient Israelite cosmology, the way how your biblical authors saw the world is the biblical authors believed that in the beginning of the world, there was nothing but water. Let me show you guys a better picture. So the Israelites believed that in the beginning of the world was like this. There was nothing but undifferentiated waters. There was nothing to separate the waters from the waters. And this was the world. Why is any of this important? Because the way how the Israelites saw the world, this is similar to how other people and other cultures saw the world. And this is going to answer the question of, well, what was God doing in the beginning? So if you guys know anything about the Enuma Elish is one of the oldest creation stories in the world, which is written in Akkadian. Akkadian is like a form of Babylonian for the people who don't know. So the Enuma Elish is a Babylonian creation story about how the world was created. And in the Enuma Elish, the world is created because the gods come from these cosmic waters that I just showed you guys. Now, when you read the Genesis account doesn't mention anything about how Yahweh came from these cosmic waters. As a matter of fact, when you read the Genesis account, Yahweh doesn't come from the waters, but in fact, Yahweh is hovering above the waters that the other gods claim to come from. And so if you were a Babylonian and if you were reading the Genesis story, you would immediately understand that the author is trying to say, your gods come from the waters, but the God of Israel is so great and so amazing and so strong that Yahweh doesn't come from the waters. Yahweh is above the waters. Yahweh hovered over the waters that your nasty, dirty, stinky gods claim to come from. Now, why is any of this important? Because in the Enuma Elish, there is a war. There's a war in the heavenly realm. And after this war in the heavenly realm, that is how the world is created. And so when you read the book of Genesis, verse 2, chapter 1, it says, the Spirit of God hovered over the face of Tehom, or the deep. I talk about this in my books. If you do not have my book, Secrets of the Bible from the East, get my books in my bio. So the text says the Spirit of God hovered over the face of Tehom. And Tehom, that Hebrew word for the deep or the sea, that is a cognate. That is a cognate to an Akkadian word, which is Tiamat. Tiamat is the name of the dragon in the Enuma Elish that the gods killed so that they could make the universe. So when you go to Psalm chapter 74, it says, Yahweh, you crushed the head of the dragons. You crushed the head of Leviathan. Well, when did Yahweh crush the head of Leviathan? You read it, but you just didn't know that you read it. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, when it says the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the deep, it's reflective language. The Spirit of God, how it should translate is, it should say, the Spirit of God hovered over the face of Tiamat. So, with that being the case, when you read Genesis, Genesis is not the beginning. Genesis is the conclusion of how God defeated a dragon and how there is a long cosmic war in the heavenly realms. But the Genesis account starts after that war ended. So if you were a Babylonian or if you were somebody from another culture, the question you would be asking yourself is, wait a minute, this creation story is missing something. What happened to the part about the war? The Genesis author doesn't talk about a war. The Genesis author talks about after the war. The Genesis account talks about how after Yahweh destroyed everybody, after Yahweh won over the other gods. And there's a whole bunch of other things that go into that. But what was God doing in the beginning? God was warring against these other gods, crushing their heads and stepping on their toes. And so this is how an ancient Israelite would have thought about all of this stuff. And this is how people in the ancient Near East would have thought about your Bible. And because we don't have any cultural context to what we're reading, we really don't actually know what's going on. So if you want to learn more about this stuff, and if you want to learn more about your Bible, go to the link in my bio and get my books, Secrets of the Bible from the East. I'll talk about this in way more detail. The discount code for today is books, and there's also a free lesson for you guys.
If you want to know more, then you have to get my books, Secrets of the Bible from the East. Click on the link in my bio or on this post and use the available discount code.